In this video, I'm going to share the difference between a due date and a plan date inside of Morgen. A due date acting like a single deadline for a task, plan dates being the times and days that you want to do the task that you're planning. If we have a look inside of Morgen, you can see I've got a personal event in my orange calendar, and then I have an event inside of my work and personal calendar, which is why it's purple and orange, and then I have tasks inside of the left sidebar. You can see here I've got Saturday underneath trampoline, which is showing a due date, but then on Mum's birthday card, I have an icon that says I have a session that's been scheduled in the past, whereas this task has nothing underneath it. If I click on the task, you can see I can add a due date, but that's it. If, however, I drag this task onto the calendar and let go, now I've got 12:30 till 1 o'clock as a scheduled time. You'll notice there's a calendar icon underneath this task, and when I double click on the task, I now have a planned start, date and time, planned end, date and time, and the due date option at the bottom of the edit window. So I have a scheduled planned start and end time to do this task in my calendar, but no due date. I could then schedule this task another time of the day, so 3:30 till 4. If I double click, the planned start date is the same, but time is different, and then we have the end time different to the previous session. These are two different sessions of the same task, and you'll notice the icon underneath the task has now also been changed to two different icons. If I drag the task in for tomorrow at another time, you can see we have another planned start and planned end date and time for this one task. And then if I add a due date, let's say the 29th on Thursday, and save, you'll notice the task has been updated. In the sidebar, you can see the date is now being shown as Tuesday. That is the due date, the 29th. If we have a look at the scheduled task on Tuesday, the due date has been added, which is the same to the due date of this scheduled task, and the same for the scheduled slot on Wednesday, because these are the exact same task. They are just different sessions with different planned start and planned end times. If I go to the view settings and then manage due dates on the calendar, you can see I now have two different due dates. The trampoline task due date is showing on Saturday, but this doesn't have a planned start or end time because it's not scheduled on the calendar. And then we have the prepared meeting with David due on Thursday with three different schedule slots. If I drag this to Wednesday, the task due date has been updated. So when I double click on that slot, it's now the 28th. If we changed it to the 30th and then save, you'll notice this will move to the 30th as that's the due date visualization. If I drag the due date back to Wednesday and then schedule a slot after the due date, I get a notification asking, do I want to update the due date? I can update the due date, or I can leave the due date the same. If we leave the due date the same, you'll notice there is a warning icon saying this planned start and planned end time is after the due date. And so if I move this due date to Friday, that's going to change because now the planned start and end dates are before the due date. And this is consistent with all of the tasks inside of Morgen. So if I go to Notion, go to the view settings, manage due dates on the calendar, you can see the Notion Morgen integration task has a due date, and that due date is synced to Notion. If we drag this to Thursday, you'll see the pop-up, the due date has been updated in Notion. So the date property I have in the Notion settings is synced to the Morgen due date. However, if I drag this task into Morgen, say for Wednesday, and then let's say for another time on Wednesday, and double click, the planned start and planned end date and times are Morgen specific, so that's not synced to Notion, but the due date is. If we come down to this schedule slot, different planned start, date and time, but the due date is still Thursday, which is synced to Notion.